My child, the street is filled with noise, yet a strange silence hangs in the air at the same time. Sirens echo in the distance, people gather in tight circles, and flashes from cameras carve sharp streaks of light through the dark evening sky. Nobody is laughing, nobody is scrolling their phones, nobody is talking casually. Instead, whispers curl through the air like smoke, and every pair of eyes is glued to one single spot on the road. A car lies there, torn, smashed, twisted, barely recognizable. The metal has folded like paper, the windshield has shattered into tiny diamonds scattered across the asphalt, and the smell of burnt rubber stings the air. You would think this scene was pulled straight out of a thriller movie or a dramatic news broadcast. But no, my child, this moment is real. It unfolded only minutes ago. And the woman trapped inside that mangled vehicle is not just another stranger passing through the world. Her life is tied to a secret that concerns you. There is a reason you are hearing this story today. There is a reason your spirit is paying attention right now. Because what the rescuers pulled out of that car was not only shocking, it was the key to exposing a plan that was designed to ruin your destiny. The paramedics move quickly, shouting instructions to one another as they cut through twisted metal. Time is fighting against them, and they know it. The woman inside is barely conscious, drifting in and out, her breaths shallow and fragile. Machines beep, oxygen masks are placed over her face, and stretchers are brought forward. Chaos surrounds her like a storm, yet there is something deeper happening behind the scenes, something she never imagined would be uncovered today. And before you ask, Lord, who is she? Why did this happen? Is she going to live? I must pause you. Because the truth hidden inside that car is far darker than broken bones or shattered glass. And once it came out, the path before her changed forever. If life returns to her body, prison waits on the other side. That is not a threat. It is the consequence of what she carried and the evil she planned. To understand what the rescuers discovered, we must rewind the clock. We must walk backwards through her decisions, step by step, to the moment where everything truly began. Earlier that day, when morning light first crept through her curtains, she stood in her apartment quietly. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirror, eyes restless, hands trembling just slightly. She picked up a sleek leather bag and held it close, her lips pressing together as if sealing a promise. She stepped out the door, locking it carefully behind her, not because she feared losing belongings, but because she was fixing to lose something much more important, her conscience. She walked to her car with purpose, but beneath that controlled appearance, anxiety pulsed. When she slid into the driver's seat and turned the key, nothing happened. Silence. No engine sound. No movement. Just stillness. That was the first warning, a whisper from heaven telling her to pause. But instead of stopping, she slammed the steering wheel, muttered to herself, and tried again. Still nothing. Finally, on the third attempt, the engine roared alive and she smirked as though she had overcome the problem. She did not realize she wasn't fighting the car, she was fighting grace. Later, on a nearly deserted road, the engine cut off again. The night around her grew heavy, and only a faint streetlight flickered overhead. That was the second warning. She should have turned around. She should have walked away. But pride pushes people further than logic ever could. A mechanic passing by stopped to help, lifted the hood, examined, and said there seemed to be no issue. And as though mocking wisdom, the car started up immediately once again. She drove forward, not realizing she was driving deeper into her own downfall. Hours later, she reached a deserted lot where only one man stood waiting, leaning against his vehicle. No conversation about the weather. No small talk about life. Just a transaction, quiet, cold, calculated. She handed him the leather bag full of cash. He counted with practiced hands, then opened his trunk. Box by box, he loaded heavy packages into her car. They were wrapped tightly, sealed, disguised. She didn't ask what was inside. There was no need. She already knew they were illegal, destructive, deadly. And yet greed silenced every fear. Once the deal ended, she drove off, gripping the steering wheel tightly, as though she could control fate by holding harder. But those packages, my child, didn't simply sit quietly. They carried a weight greater than their physical size. A spiritual weight. A moral weight. And fear began stalking her thoughts relentlessly. Every passing police car made her heart thump. Every traffic light felt suspicious. Every small sound inside the car startled her. She began convincing herself that the entire world was watching her. And that paranoia birthed the very disaster she thought she could outrun. Sirens eventually filled the air behind her. Red and blue bathed the road. Her breath caught. Panic surged. She was convinced they were coming for her. She imagined handcuffs. Headlines. Shame. Without thinking, she slammed her foot on the accelerator, flying down the road in blind terror. But fear is a terrible driver. Her eyes blurred, the road curved, and control slipped completely from her hands. One sudden turn led to spinning tires, screeching metal, crushing impact, and darkness. The officers who rushed to the crash expected to see injury and destruction. What they didn't expect was discovery. When they opened the door to assess the wreckage, what lay inside exposed the truth: packages packed carefully, wrapped meticulously, resting where they should never have been. Drugs. Not small amounts, not for personal use, but enough to devastate entire communities. Enough to mark her future with guilt and crime. But here is where your heart must listen. Those substances were never meant to stay in her possession. They were meant to be planted in your environment, your car, your home, your surroundings. The plan was simple: destroy your reputation, get you arrested, stain your name, and break your spirit. She wasn't just trafficking, she was plotting. Someone wanted to frame you so deeply that everything you worked for would crumble in shame. While you slept at night thinking God had forgotten you, He was actually blocking traps being designed in secret. And this, my child, is why heaven moved. The warnings she ignored were not random misfires. They were divine interventions. The car refusing to start, the engine cutting off, they were attempts to pull her off a road she chose anyway. She pressed forward believing she was powerful, forgetting every pit one digs for another eventually becomes their own grave. And exactly as written in Scripture, the pit she dug swallowed her instead. The trap she prepared for you folded around her life before it ever touched yours. Now she lies in a hospital bed surrounded by machines, with detectives at the door, and a case waiting to unfold. If breath returns to her lungs, courtrooms await her steps. And while justice takes its course, God turns to you and says, "Look at how I covered you. Look at how I fought battles you never even saw forming. Look at how I intercepted a storm before one drop of rain touched your head. You thought you were overlooked, but I was watching the whole time. You believed no one cared, but heaven guarded you before danger reached your address. You see, child, every tear you cried, I counted. Every long night where you questioned your path, I listened. When people walked out on you and laughed at your faith, I stood still beside you. You thought weakness would break you, but it formed strength within you instead. While some chose shortcuts, you chose endurance. While others mocked your patience, you quietly trusted. And now, the season is changing. Where humiliation once lived, honor is rising. Where rejection once echoed, acceptance is taking root. I am restoring what was stolen, not halfway, but fully. I am turning pain into testimony. I am lifting you from the shadows into the place designed for you long ago. Those who spoke against you will witness what I am building around your life. Those who plotted silently will see their plans dissolve. This is not revenge. This is protection. This is justice. Your trials did not break you, they prepared you. They stretched your heart, deepened your faith, sharpened your discernment, and awakened your spirit. And now, as this new season unfolds, I am opening doors that your strength couldn't open, only your faith could. I am surrounding you with opportunities and favor. Not because you were perfect, but because you remained faithful when giving up would have been easier. So breathe now. Release the weight you've carried. The guilt. The fear. The anxiety. They no longer belong to you. Lift your head. You are walking into healing. You are walking into provision. You are walking into protection that surrounds you like armor. And every weapon formed, every plot whispered in darkness, every trap dug behind your back, none will stand. Not now. Not ever. Hold this truth deep: when I say I am for you, no plan can prevail against you. When I say breakthrough is coming, no storm can delay it. And when I say the story is shifting, nothing and no one can stop the turning of the page. Stay ready. Stay grounded. Stay close to my voice. Because the same God who stopped a plan meant to destroy your life is the same God walking you into the blessings you were created to carry. And this is only the beginning of what I am about to unfold for you. My child, what you are stepping into now is not simply a blessing, it is a rearranging of destiny. While the world sees coincidence, heaven sees orchestration. Nothing that has taken place around you was random. Every delay had meaning. Every closed door had protection behind it. Every unanswered question carried preparation. You asked, why me? Why do I always have to struggle first? And I answered, through your journey rather than your ears. Because some people are handed easy roads that lead nowhere. But you, my child, were given a road that built character strong enough to carry the future I've written for you. Do not despise the path that shaped you. That path is why the trap meant for you failed. That path is why lies couldn't stick to you. That path is why your name is being preserved, guarded, and elevated. The woman in that car had plans fueled by greed and jealousy. Her intention was not only to profit but to destroy. Somewhere in her heart, resentment grew toward you. She saw your growth, your potential, your light, and instead of being inspired, she was threatened. She believed she could sabotage my work in you. What she did not understand is this: every life I call has protection attached to it. You are not just surviving life, you are fulfilling purpose. And purpose cannot be buried by human schemes. Even when enemies smile at you in the daylight while plotting behind closed doors, remember, I search every heart. Nothing is hidden from me. As investigators gather evidence from the crash site, they realize the story goes deeper than smuggling. They begin to trace phone records, track conversations, analyze movements. Layer by layer, truth unfolds. And in that unfolding truth, your name surfaces, not as a suspect, but as the one she was preparing to frame. Officers stand stunned. How close your life came to destruction. How near your future came to being rewritten with shame. Yet you remained unaware, going about your days, whispering prayers, asking for help without even realizing the battle being fought over your life. This is why, my child, when you think I am silent, I am still working. There will come a day when someone tells you, you are lucky. But this was not luck. This was my hand. This was the covering promised long ago, the shield promised to those who trust me. The woman thought she was confident, untouchable, clever enough to manipulate outcomes. Instead, fear betrayed her, and justice exposed her. This is the fate of plans built on malice. They crumble under the weight of their own darkness. Let this be a reminder, you never need to fight battles with revenge. Stand still. Let me fight for you. Your peace is your victory strategy. Now listen closely, because I am leading you into something new. Your heart has carried wounds longer than it should have. People misunderstood you. They misjudged your intentions. They assumed your silence meant weakness, not realizing your silence was discipline. You have spent years trying to prove yourself, trying to be seen, trying to survive storms without losing yourself. And I saw every effort. I watched you choose kindness when bitterness felt easier. I watched you forgive when anger begged you to hold on. Each time you honored what was right, you planted seeds in the unseen. And seeds planted in faith always return with harvest. A shift is happening around you, subtle yet undeniable. Relationships that drain you will fade out. Opportunities that align with your calling will appear. Obstacles that used to intimidate you will lose their power. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Your mind has matured. Your heart has deepened. Your spiritual vision is clearer. Where once you panicked, you will now discern. Where once you felt forgotten, you will sense my nearness. Where once you stood unsure, you will walk with quiet confidence. You are evolving into who I intended you to be all along. The enemy believed the car crash would silence everything. Instead, it became a megaphone revealing truth. The story that could have ruined your name became the evidence clearing it. The trap that could have ended your path became the turning point of your story. And now, I declare over you, the season of surviving is ending. The season of rising is beginning. Prepare your spirit for change. Not chaotic change, purposeful change. I will bring the right voices into your life, the ones who recognize your calling rather than compete with it. I will position mentors, helpers, and opportunities in ways that surprise you. Not to overwhelm you, but to lift you gently into the space prepared for you. You asked for small blessings, I am preparing larger ones. You prayed for open doors, I am building entire hallways. You hoped for stability, I am establishing foundation. But with blessing comes responsibility. Guard your heart. Guard your words. Guard your time. Not everyone deserves access to your inner life anymore. Some people were allowed in the old season but cannot travel into the new one. Do not chase them when they leave. Release them with peace. I remove connections that threaten what I am planting next. Now, let us return briefly to the hospital room. The woman opens her eyes for moments at a time. Machines beep. Doctors whisper. The weight of consequences begins to dawn on her. Regret crawls across her conscience for the first time. For years she believed darkness was strength. But tonight she understands that manipulation, betrayal, and greed always demand payment. She finally realizes that the one she tried to hurt was protected, not by luck, not by coincidence, but by a hand greater than any plan. Her story becomes the warning. Your story becomes the testimony. And you, my child, must choose your response. Do not gloat. Do not celebrate another's fall. Instead, learn. Be humble. Be grateful. Be wise. Because the greatest victories are not the ones where enemies collapse, but where you rise above the urge to become like them. Mercy does not erase justice, but it keeps your heart pure. Protect that purity. It is rare. It is powerful. It is what keeps you aligned with my purpose. This chapter ends not with shock, but with awakening. You now see how close danger can come without touching you. You now understand why some delays saved you. You now realize that even when I seem quiet, I am actively defending your destiny. Let this revelation anchor you. Let it remove the fear of, what if? Let it plant confidence that you are not walking alone. Because ahead of you is impact, the kind of life that influences, inspires, and strengthens others. You were not preserved just to survive. You were preserved to shine. To speak hope. To live intentionally. To steward your gifts. To prove that darkness never writes the final chapter when faith is present. Walk forward now. Lift your head. Trust the process. And remember, any trap that rises against you will break before you ever touch it. Any storm sent to drown you will part. Any lie spoken over you will be overturned. And every blessing that carries your name will find you, in my perfect timing. My child, the days that follow carry a strange quiet. News spreads. People whisper. Some shake their heads, saying they never expected such darkness from someone who seemed so ordinary. Others talk about fate, about justice, about how secrets always find a way to surface. But you, silently, feel something different, not fear, not pride, but a deep sense of realization. It dawns on you that the unseen world is more real than the visible one. You begin to understand that life is not just about what we see, jobs, conversations, routines, but about battles happening in silence, choices that shape destinies, motives that either bless or destroy. And in that realization, something inside you shifts. You stop begging God to remove every challenge, and instead you begin asking Him to shape you for whatever lies ahead. In the quiet moments, when you're alone, memories flash across your mind, the nights you cried without answers, the days you felt invisible, the seasons where everything seemed to fall apart. Suddenly, those moments take on new meaning. They were not punishments. They were preparations. Each tear softened your heart. Each disappointment removed the wrong people. Each setback closed doors that were never meant to lead you anywhere. You spent so much time thinking you were forgotten, when all along, you were being guarded like a treasure in process. And now, heaven whispers again, don't rush. Not every blessing arrives loudly. Some blessings come in silence, disguised as protection, disguised as detours, disguised as delays. I am not late. I am precise. There are victories happening for you that you will only understand years from now. There are people I quietly removed because they would have ruined your peace. There are moments I held you back because the path ahead was poisoned. Trust what you didn't see. Trust the unseen hand that guided you here. Meanwhile, investigators piece together the final connections, the full network behind the packages. What once seemed like a simple crash becomes the key to unraveling an entire chain of corruption. Phones are seized. Names surface. Cases reopen. Lawyers talk. Journalists dig. A storm forms, but it does not shake you. Instead, you watch calmly, realizing the truth. God was not only protecting you, He was exposing a system that had harmed many others. He used one moment to reveal years of deception. He used one crash to crash a web of wicked plans. What was meant to quietly frame you instead loudly unmasked those who thought they were safe in darkness. And I speak to you again, this is how I work. I do not always shout when I move. Sometimes I whisper through events. Sometimes I answer through circumstances. Sometimes I let the weight of people's own choices catch up with them. Not to delight in their fall, but to bring truth to the surface, to protect the innocent, to stop harm from spreading. Justice without cruelty. Mercy without blindness. Order restored where chaos once ruled. One evening, as you stand near your window, watching the city lights move like streams of stars below, you feel it, a peace you haven't felt in a very long time. It isn't loud. It doesn't rush. It simply settles over your soul like a warm blanket. And for the first time, you whisper not, "Why me?" but, "Thank you." Not because everything is perfect, but because you finally see purpose in the imperfections. Because deep inside, you know something sacred, you are seen, you are protected, and you are being prepared for something greater than survival. And now, I give you this promise, I am rebuilding your life piece by piece. I am restoring your confidence step by step. I am strengthening your spirit layer by layer. When the time arrives, doors that refused you before will open without effort. Voices that doubted you will grow silent. Paths you could not find will appear beneath your feet. Not because you forced them, but because you trusted when there was nothing to hold on to but faith. Do not fear the next chapter. You are not walking into it alone. You are walking with wisdom, with discernment, with a deeper awareness of who you are and whose hand carries you. Live differently now. Walk carefully. Choose kindness deliberately. Stay anchored in truth. And whenever fear whispers again, remember this story, how danger got close but could not cross the line drawn by heaven. How a trap was built but snapped shut before it reached you. How the very night meant to destroy you became the night that revealed how deeply you are loved and guarded. Your journey from this point forward will still have valleys, but they will not break you. They will shape you. They will sharpen your voice. They will remind you that every attack has limits when my protection surrounds you. Lift your eyes, child. A new season truly has begun. And this time, you will not just survive it, you will thrive, shine, and walk boldly into the life I created specifically for you. Because your story is far from finished. My child, everything seemed to calm on the outside, but in the unseen realm, something powerful was happening. The moment truth came to light, the atmosphere around your life shifted. Chains that had quietly wrapped around your name began to snap. Accusations that were forming in secret dissolved like smoke. And in that very moment, I stood between you and the storm and declared, enough. The darkness that once crept toward you was pushed back, not by force alone, but by authority that darkness cannot argue with. Then something unexpected happened. As the detectives reviewed the plans found on her phone, they uncovered messages, conversations, detailed instructions. They saw your name written again and again. They read how the drugs were meant to be planted in your surroundings. They discovered how they intended to call the authorities at the right time so everything would point directly at you. Screenshots. Maps. Timelines. Every piece of betrayal laid out in full color. The officers looked at one another, shaken. It was no coincidence. It was intentional. And yet, the one thing they couldn't explain was this: why did everything collapse before it began? Because, my child, what they didn't see was the unseen hand that overturned the plan. What they didn't understand was the one who watched silently, waited patiently, and intervened precisely. They looked at paperwork and saw evidence. But heaven looked at the same moment and saw deliverance. What felt to others like an accident became, in my hands, a rescue operation. Not only for your name, but for your future, your calling, your purpose. And here comes the turning point. The climax heaven had been leading toward. In a quiet office, far from the noise, a high-ranking investigator sat staring at the files. He leaned back in his chair, exhaled, and whispered what no one expected to hear: this person was protected by something bigger than us. He didn't understand faith. He didn't know how to describe it. But he recognized that normal explanations didn't fit. And at that moment, heaven smiled. Because even those who do not believe were forced to witness divine protection in action. Meanwhile, you begin to notice subtle confirmations around you. Doors you thought would shut forever begin opening gently. People who once doubted you begin apologizing quietly. Opportunities that never seemed to exist suddenly appear without effort. Not because the world changed for everyone, but because something shifted specifically over your life. Where there was resistance, there is now flow. Where there was confusion, there is clarity. Where there was fear, there is an unexplainable courage growing within you. And hear this clearly: this is not random blessing. This is positioning. I am aligning you where influence meets purpose. I am guiding you to places where your voice matters. This season isn't only about being protected, it's about being prepared to carry something bigger than what nearly crushed you. Because the battle that almost broke you has given you authority in areas you never had before. You now carry understanding, compassion, and strength that only storms can build. The woman who tried to destroy you now faces her own reckoning. Lying in that hospital bed, staring at sterile white ceilings, she finally confronts the mirror of her choices. While justice unfolds around her, conviction unfolds within her. The lies she once justified unravel. The confidence she wore like armor cracks. And deep in that cold room, she realizes something that takes her breath away: it wasn't you who almost lost everything, it was her. She tried to bury you and uncovered herself instead. She tried to ruin your future and exposed her own secrets. And for the first time, fear is replaced by something heavier: remorse. And here is where heaven reveals the deepest truth: the story was never only about protecting you from destruction. It was also about tearing down a network of darkness operating through her life. Your protection became the doorway to her confrontation with truth. What the enemy thought would destroy 2 lives ended up saving one and stopping the other from spreading more harm. I turned disaster into deliverance and exposure into awakening. Now listen carefully, here is the climax revelation: you were targeted because of what you carry. Not physical wealth. Not status. But assignment. The enemy does not attack emptiness. He attacks purpose. He attacks calling. He attacks future impact. You wondered why troubles followed you so closely, and now you see why. There is something inside you that threatens darkness. Something I placed there long before you knew your own strength. And as long as you walk with me, no scheme can erase it. So stand in this moment. Feel the weight of what I have done. Not with pride, but with awe. You survived a story that never even made it to the headlines. You walked past a battle that ended before you even saw it rise. And now I say to you, step forward with boldness. Speak when I lead. Move when I nudge. Trust when I whisper. Because your life is shifting from constant survival to intentional victory. The final scene is not the crash. It is not the hospital. It is not even the courtroom. The final scene is you, standing, healed, wiser, stronger. walking into the path designed for you since the beginning. That is the real climax. Not destruction, but transformation. Not fear, but faith rising. Not defeat, but destiny awakening. And from this day forward, remember, nobody can bury what heaven has decided to raise.